Welcome to Public Lab's wrap-up of a recent review on mapping for organizing and advocacy. And we've just spent a few months talking about this topic on our weekly open calls. We've been answering each other's questions and trading tips and stories. And we've also been reviewing and refreshing materials on the Public Lab website. So we are here on this call to share highlights from that collaborative work and then talk about how anyone who is interested in starting with a community organizing or advocacy work to use maps for that, that kind of work. So the first half of this call will have a little presentation, and the second half we'll turn it over to an open discussion where we can reflect on what we've shared and ask each other questions, workshop on ideas, and just keep moving forward on the things we've already been talking about. So I will paste this little intro into the chat for anyone who's arriving just as we're here. Okay, so since it's a pretty small call, I think we can all go through a round of introductions and just say maybe your name, where you're calling from, and then something that you're interested in learning about or sharing on this call today. So I can kick it off and then I'll popcorn it over to someone else, and then we can just kind of keep popcorning around. My name is Jeanette Lim, and I'm the research coordinator at Public Lab. I'm calling in from Bellingham, Washington, and I'm just mainly excited to keep hearing about all the fantastic work that people have been doing, the local organizing, the folks have been doing in their communities, the expertise that y'all bring to this work. So thanks everyone for being here. And I'll hand it over to Julia, who is Public Lab's Research Curation Fellow in Organizing and Advocacy.
Thanks, Jeanette. Hi all, my name is Julia Masters. Like Jeanette said, I'm a fellow with Public Lab, and I've been working on this research area review and some other knowledge-based materials. And I am usually based in Chicago, but at the moment in California. And I'm very excited to see, how these tools can uplift and broaden some of the work that you guys are already doing. So I will popcorn to Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee. I'm the learning and evaluation manager, and I have a fussy baby right now. And I'm looking forward to learning more about what's going on in all the projects. And
All right, since Renee got cut off there, I'll popcorn it over to Sarah Sage.
Hello, hi, I'm Sarah Sage. I'm a fellow with Public Lab. I'm working in Los Angeles County on air monitoring for gas pollutants. And right now we're trying to figure out how to correlate our data from our handheld gas monitors to be able to map them. So it's been very interesting. And I think I will popcorn to Sean now.
Thanks, Sarah. Sean McInnes. I am based in the DC metro area. I am the GeoPortal program manager at ESRI and have been with Public Lab contributor for a number of years. And I really enjoy hearing about everybody's projects and just seeing different ways that mapping is supporting the projects and thinking of ways that we can help leverage geospatial capabilities to help support the research and the initiatives that are going on. With that, I'll popcorn over to Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Brower. I'm a designer. I work in sustainability. I'm director of Green Map, but I'm here with LES Breathe. So this is a local group that formed to address air quality issues and other issues around the forthcoming raising of East River Park, which is a 45-acre park with 110,000 people impacted by the building of a flood wall there. And so we're now collecting data on Purple Air and AtmoTube, and Sean is among the many wonderful people helping us figure out this question of how can we use this data to really help people connect and take action and for their own health. There's an indoor air quality piece of this coming as well. Thank you. So we're early, but it's been great, so great to be able to share here and keep things moving. So many changes just in this few weeks, right? In the potential. It's been great. Oh, I'll pass it over to, who hasn't gone yet? Alana?
One second. Hey you guys, sorry I'm bouncing around, so I've been video off. Hi, my name is Alana Moore. I am the kits fulfillment coordinator with Public Lab. I'm coming to you guys or calling to you guys from New Orleans. I am originally from Houma, Louisiana, which is a town down the bayou. So I come to Public Lab through doing this mapping stuff as part of like a community member and who got organized in, you know? Sarah Greenberg, I think you're the last one.
Hi. I actually went to Tulane. I love New Orleans, and I'm jealous you get to live there.
Yeah.
My name is Sarah. I'm an attorney at a small plaintiff side law firm based out of DC. We bring a lot of environmental cases and use maps to sort of understand the extent of the damage and contamination of a given area. I'm a recent graduate, so I'm just excited to learn more about the area.
Awesome. Thanks for those introductions and good to meet you, Sarah Greenberg. I'm really glad you could join during this time. So what we're going to do for the first half of this call is I'm going to share my screen and just show some slides, just highlighting the resources that we updated on the Public Lab website, some of the ones that are existing, just tying all this material together. And then at the top of the hour, we'll take a 15-minute break to just take a breather from the screen, and then we'll regroup for that open facilitated discussion time, which will be led by Julia. So I'm going to share my screen. Feel free to go off video if you want at this time. All right. So hopefully you're looking at a screenshot there of a clip about to start. So I just wanted to start with this, the short 30-second clip. It's from an hour-long episode of a documentary called The Crowd in the Cloud. And there is a little intro to Public Lab in there as well, but I wanted to feature this clip. It's from, it features a person named Nama Buddhataki. He's the founder of Kathmandu Living Labs in Nepal. And this is someone who organized open community mapping in the wake of the Nepal earthquake in 2015. Oops. And maybe it will start. There we go.
A lot of people in open mapping talk about map, the product. That is important, but at the same time, the process of putting something on the map is also as important as the map itself. Many individuals, young people, they realize for the first time in their life that, hey, I do have knowledge about my community. I'm fully convinced that this phenomenon of this open mapping, open source, citizen science, the collective actions on part of citizens will continue to grow.
So the reason I love that clip is because it really just highlighted the process of mapping, and not just the map itself that gets produced as this amazing tool for community organizing, especially as an early step. So it's something that Public Lab encourages folks to do when they're just starting out with any organizing or advocacy work, because there are pretty accessible ways to do it. And because it shows people, just like Nama was saying, that like the richness of what they already know about a place. So maps can be used to represent knowledge, cultural resources, environmental pollution, and also future visions of a place. So we're going to see some examples of these things as we go through. But mapping at Public Lab has been pretty well documented over the years. It is, many community members have extensive experience with mapping and aerial photography. Some of the folks who are on the call. So one of the goals we had over the last few months with this work was trying to tie those mapping materials that we have together with organizing and advocacy methods and examples, so we could just make that connection really clear, especially for folks who are starting out. So we used the Public Lab website and our weekly open calls that many of you joined to trade resources and tips. And we updated our resources on the website. So if someone's looking for information on where to start, hopefully it's all in that one place. I'm going to show really like the highlight reel of the resources that we put together, and a note on where we've been collecting them. One of the places we've been collecting resources is on this wiki page. It's a collaborative wiki called Advocacy with Maps, and you can find it at publiclab.org/advocacy with maps. And on that wiki page, you'll find, I should say, actually, it's editable, which means that, anyone who is signed into the Public Lab website, you can go edit it, revise, just please go ahead and make it better with the things that you know and the things that you've found helpful. So all of these links as well, we will be able to share at the end of this presentation. So one of the things that you'll find on that wiki page is a set of getting started activities. So it includes setting advocacy goals at the start of your work and also figuring out where you might want to map. One of the activities that we wanted to highlight here is on power mapping. So I'm going to advance the slide and then hand it over to Julia to share a little more.
Thanks. So I'm not sure who is familiar with power mapping here, but we put together a little research note and activity for getting started. And I'm really excited to talk about power mapping because it's a tool that I used a lot in my professional life and my academic life, but it basically involves identifying the people or the organizations or the targets that can influence the outcome of a policy or an issue that you're working on. And so as you can see to the right, this is like a very base level example of kind of how to visually understand the flow of power. But we have linked a bunch of really great resources in the research note that show things ranking from like, money flowing from different politicians, from fossil fuel companies to other types of kind of political lensed power mapping. And then there's also kind of another version of that, which is a more apolitical and kind of being able to show progress over time or where different issues have fallen short. And so I think there's a good range of different examples that could lend itself helpful to a variety of issue-based campaigns. And so we also have laid out a little bit at the bottom of this slide, understanding kind of when a power map would work best. And in TLDR, it is like kind of when you've done some of the work already and established a little bit of the goal and the direction you're going. And so that is one of the tools that we now have up there for you guys to check out.
Awesome, thanks Julia. And Julia created that tool. So yes, one of the brand new resources that we have, brand new activities that we have on the website. So like Julia explained, power mapping can be this like first step type activity to help you determine the people involved along the way to affecting change on an environmental issue. to start investigating that issue itself, there's creating maps of a place, which many of you are familiar with that as a process. So one of the first pieces of things that you need to do to figure that out is deciding what kind of mapping tool to use. So on the website and here, we've kind of broken it down into two approaches, and one is capturing your own aerial images, and the other is using existing maps and online tools for that. So in that first camp of capturing your own image, there's do-it-yourself aerial photography that involves attaching a camera, just like a point and shoot that many of us probably had in a decade or two ago, and attaching it to things that go up in the sky. So balloons filled with helium, there's kites or really long poles, and then launching them up to the place that you would like to map. And then you'll get images like this. So here's an example on the left of an image you can get from balloon mapping. You see that string actually just going up to where the balloon is and where the camera is attached. You can also get some pretty high shots from kite mapping. And then pole mapping is for a little bit closer to the surface, but it's also just a great way to get aerial shots. So we're going to talk a little bit about the example that's on the right here, but that's from the Rocky Intertidal of Northern California. So why is aerial photography pretty great? Well, you can do that mapping as a group. It's pretty fun to get together with a group of people and do a balloon mapping workshop. We've got resources on the website for how to host a workshop like that. You can do it with pretty accessible materials. So you can do it with balloons or so like balloons that you fill up with your own helium. You can do it with, I've seen people do it with party balloons, like the helium Mylar party balloons, but you can also, make a kite out of Mylar. We've seen examples of groups of kiddos doing it out of plastic bags. So there's definitely like a range of materials that you can use to build these tools. And then also with your own aerial photography, you can get images of the exact place you want and when you want it. So this could be important if you're mapping a specific event, like a specific pollution event, and you need information that is the most up to date and of the specific location that you want. We have a lot of resources on the Public Lab website of how to do balloon and kite mapping. This has been put together by the many years of folks who have experience with this kind of DIY aerial photography. There is an activity on how to decide on a specific tool for DIY aerial photography, especially differentiating between balloon mapping and kite mapping, when either of those might be best for your situation. And we also have a bunch of really handy dandy and cute guides on balloon mapping and kite mapping. So this goes back to the grassroots mapping days of Public Lab, tells you everything you need to get together a balloon mapping kit, essentially. And this has also been translated into other languages by members of the Public Lab community. So you'll find this all on a page where we have guides and translations, and I'll add those links at the end of the presentation as well. Now, if you've gone out and collected your aerial images yourself, then we also have an online tool. It's open source and free. It's called MapKnitter at mapknitter.org for stitching individual aerial images together to create that larger aerial map. So you'll see an example on the right. This is a map that was created from several images stitched together and then overlaid onto an existing map. Okay, so if you're interested in DIY aerial photography and you want to see a little bit more hands-on, some of the parts that go into that, Alana, who is here from our kids team, will be doing a live build of a camera mount for a balloon mapping kit today. This is happening at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And the balloon mapping kits, which were out of the public lab store for a little while because of the pandemic, they're back in the store. And we'll be celebrating that with a discount code on all balloon mapping kits. So we'll announce that code during the live build. We'll also record it. We'll record that live build as well. So if you can, join us for that live build. It's going to be a fun time. And we're going to learn how to put some things together. Now, there are more ways to map. So if you're not in the camp of wanting to do your own DIY aerial photography, you can go some other routes as well. So there is something called mental mapping. And this is a great group activity to do with neighbors, with a community group, especially as you're getting started in an advocacy campaign, where you just get paper and markers and then you draw important parts of your neighborhood on the map. You don't worry so much about the geographic space and getting things sort of like exactly right to scale, but what's most important is that process of just sharing what you know collectively with other folks who know some of the same things as you or might see them differently. You get that multiple perspectives from the room in one place. There's also existing online platforms that have open maps. So OpenStreetMap is an example. That was the Kathmandu Living Labs example, who used OpenStreetMap to map essentially neighborhoods in Kathmandu. And then there's also Open Green Map from the Green Map system. So this is Wendy's system here, and they've just launched a second version of their Open Green Map system. And Wendy can tell you more about it too, for sure. Wendy knows a lot more about it than I do. Okay. So, no matter the method that you use to create a map, you can use that map and the mapping process itself as a tool in your community organizing work. So some of the ways that you might use your map include making an annotated map. So this is another new resource that Julia put together. So I'll hand it over to her again.
Great. So annotated maps, pretty self-explanatory, I think, but maps that are created with a base layer, and then you kind of add icons, drawings, different notes on top of it to help understand either your neighborhood or the region, or also kind of highlight future areas where work is needed. It can also be used to collect data on particular metrics. And so we have pulled together a note that gives some examples of how to start this process, and also kind of the goals or perhaps the outcomes that you could expect. And we kind of queued up some additional kind of ideas of thinking about how to create an annotated map, including thinking about where we live, where we play, where we pray, and using that in just like your beginning stages of thinking about what types of icons or outcomes you might be looking for. And I also just wanted to call out one of the cool examples that we have linked. This is from the city of San Antonio. It's a little bit less of a annotated map and more just kind of a interactive map, I guess I would say, and it shows equity demographics throughout the city, and you can click through and kind of layer on different mapping criteria by census tract or other variables, and I think that is a cool sort of open source way of interacting with one of these ideas. So I will stop there.
Awesome, thanks, Julie, and thanks for calling that out, that example. And then, we're gonna see like a lot of overlap with this idea of annotated maps with many other examples as well. So already we mentioned Open Green Map, which is like, I was about to say iconic for their icons, and that's pretty much what they are, but creating those icons, which are really like annotations of many different kinds of things that you can put on a map. So yeah, lots of examples of ways to represent information on annotated maps there. You can also use maps to guide environmental monitoring. So helping to plan any environmental testing that you're doing or monitoring that you want to do. So in this example from Public Lab community member Elizabeth Wilder, there is photo paper that is sensitive to hydrogen sulfide emissions in the air. In this case, the photo paper was used to sense hydrogen sulfide emissions from oil and gas developments in Wyoming. And the higher the hydrogen sulfide exposure on this paper, the darker the paper becomes. So it's a very visual cue of emissions. And this is for an unregulated gas. So it's also something that there's not data, typically a lot of data on. So Elizabeth used this annotated map here to guide future test sites. So they had some initial test results from the photo paper and said, okay, around the oil and gas pad, which is right here in the middle, they're going to plan some other test areas. And the image on the right shows those subsequent test areas where you can see darker stained photo paper in areas where there are higher emissions. So this is a really visual way to present information about this particular gas emission. You can use maps to raise awareness of an issue like an environmental disaster or to start a campaign. So this goes back to Public Lab's history in grassroots mapping, when a lot of people got together to capture aerial images of BP's Deepwater Horizon oil spill, when agencies weren't publishing their own images and when there was a media blackout. So people who lived there didn't have the information on what was actually happening right around them. So they went out and got it themselves. So there is a long history of that work, and also lots of images that were created by these DIY aerial photographers of the Gulf Coast during this time. You can also use maps to tell a story about a place or understand a place better. So this was that example from the pole mapping. This person who posted about this, Rosa, is a marine biologist using a form of pole mapping. So they've got a DIY camera rig attached to a pole, which has been made into a track. It can run across that pole. And they're using it to capture images of the rocky intertidal coast on Talawa de Mi land in so-called Northern California. And they're surveying the biodiversity there, the organisms there, so they can, through that imaging, can help them better understand the ecology of the place and use that to inform a conservation plan or improve the conservation plan they have as climate change is affecting that area. And another example of using maps to understand a place comes from Sarah Sage, who is on the call. And this is a project that she worked on, mapping how waste moved from source to landfill in Southern California, using that map to show how Santa Clarita Valley receives most of the waste from Los Angeles. So a disproportionate amount of waste traveling to this particular area. Also, maps can be used potentially as evidence. So Sarah Greenberg probably knows a whole lot more about this and can speak to it as well if you wish during the discussion. But for example, here, evidence of ongoing environmental pollution from industrial facilities. So from this image from Scott Eustace of Healthy Gulf, showing ongoing pollution from a coal terminal dumping into the Mississippi directly right there. So another annotated map to illustrate exactly what's going on. And this was an example of an aerial image that was used to spur an agency to do some more site monitoring. So in this case, the evidence was given over to an environmental agency who then worked on enforcement. So yeah, images like these can be helpful as a communication tool with agencies, with and potentially with cases against industry as well. Well, of course, there are many other things that people can do with maps and the process of mapping than just the examples listed there. And none of the examples are even like mutually exclusive. They're just sort of like showing different ways that you can kind of think about mapping given the advocacy goals that you have. So those are just a few examples, and there are also many ways to do advocacy work beyond mapping, of course. So we've also updated some resources on the Public Lab website on advocacy in general. And this is another open collaborative page that you can contribute to, and it'd be great to keep growing those resources. That's at publiclab.org/advocacy. There you will find resources on advocacy methods, organized like very, very generally. We know this is like not always how things go step by step, but where you might start and then progress through. So for example, first by connecting with people close to you, your peers, your neighbors, people you know in your community, through storytelling, through awareness raising campaigns, through community organizing, and then going through and possibly gaining more coverage through the media, and eventually possibly going and interacting with governance processes. So going to a public comment period, or working with government agencies and also potentially industry. There's also an activity that walks you through how to choose an advocacy pathway that best suits your group's needs and objectives. So it's a workshop activity there, so it's great to do with that community group once you've connected with them. And everything that's been tagged with advocacy on the Public Lab website, all posts and questions, and just stories, examples of people doing this work on the Public Lab website, you'll see at the advocacy tag page. So this is publiclab.org/tag/advocacy. Again, all these links I'll share at the end, so we've got them all in one place. I will also be writing up, by the way, a summary of this research area review and this call. So all the links that were shared either in this presentation or on the call itself will be all in one place in one research note. So we'll all be getting that too. So similarly, in a more general vein on the subject of community organizing, we've got a collaborative wiki going on for that as well. You can go ahead and edit that, please. So this is another new wiki where you'll find methods for place-based community organizing, especially. There's quite a bit of overlap with the mapping materials there because being place-based, it is about, or we do emphasize, ways to get to know that place better. So through walking tours, for instance, through doing like historical land use sort of investigations and using maps of that to figure out what may have been there before, what kind of pollution you might be dealing with that has been carried over. And you'll find all of the posts and questions, again, tagged with organizing on our organizing tag page. So you see there, one of the most recent examples is the power mapping activity that Julia made. Okay, so I've been talking plenty. I'm going to wrap us up here. We would love for you to join us at Public Lab. If you haven't already, you can sign up for free at publiclab.org for a profile. You can follow the topics that we've been updating, so you'll always get a little email update whenever something new is posted about organizing or advocacy or mapping. You can post questions you have, any ideas you've been working on, research notes. Several of you have already been doing that through this period, which is great. So we're just growing the resources. Other folks who come at any time who are trying to learn about this can then learn from you. We've talked to people at our weekly open calls. So this has been a wonderfully connecting time to workshop on ideas, and we are hopefully going to continue those calls. So yeah, look for a link for a form where you can let us know if you want to join a future call. And then also, if you can, again, reminder, tune in today to the live build that Alana is going to be leading. And also next week, there is going to be a speaker panel on folks who have actively done work in mapping for organizing. So that is going to be led by my colleague Liz. Keep an eye out for an event announcement of that for next week. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And exit out of here. Okay, and that the form I want to paste in the chat right now before we take a little bit of a break, so folks can fill out their interest in joining a future call if they wish. Let me grab that link. Cool. Oops. Okay, so I just dropped the link into the Zoom chat there. There's just a couple questions for feedback and for indicating if you're interested in joining a future call, what your availability might be. So thanks for listening to me talk for a bunch of time, just to share what we've been updated, what's updated on the website. Again, all open. We'd love for you to add, contribute, edit with all the amazing knowledge that you have. And we're going to take a break right now until the top of the hour when we'll regroup. And then, Julia will be helping us facilitate a conversation and we can just kind of take it away from there. So thanks, everyone. See you at the top of the hour.
Beautiful. All right, so we wanted to just open a little space to chat about some of the work you guys are doing and learn from each other. And so just to kind of help this flow, we'll just use progressive stack. So if you want to add something, you can just type stack in the chat if there are other people who are trying to talk at the same time. But I just wanted to start by asking you all what kind of work you've been involved in that has been uplifting mapping as a tool. I know you guys have a little bit alluded to it, but I would love to hear a little bit more about how that has intersected with the work you're doing.
Should I start?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. In the past, I've done waste stream mapping, which is fairly easy because you can get the data from Cal Recycle.
Yeah.
And just put that into like, I forgot what I used. Just one of those map visualization tools. Cardo is what I used. Right now we're having trouble though. So long story short, we were trying to map air pollution in our community. And because we're using gas monitors, they're very different than, a particulate monitor, some of the newer stuff like Purple Air and Atmotube. They don't have geospatial data on them. So we are having to figure out a workaround for that. And then hopefully what we'll be able to do is zip the, zipper the data from our gas monitors to hopefully, like an ESRI product or something like that that can take all of our coordinates in the field so that we can, say we were here at this time and this is what the gas monitor read. So that's essentially our goal, because I just feel like the maps are the best advocacy tool. We got the most response when we were able to map just the waste stream, for example. So I'm here to learn and learning a lot from other people that are trying to do the same thing.
Could you say a little more about what the responses you got was? That's an interesting layer to it.
People were shocked that we as a community were dealing and taking the waste burden from the county of Los Angeles and from places as far as the Mexican border, Santa Barbara County, Ventura County, Orange County. We're taking in a massive amount of waste, and the burden has been put on an environmental justice community, which I live in. And I think it's that injustice that keeps me going, because it's terribly wrong. And so I don't know, I just feel like when people saw that, they were like, this is so unfair. And now our goal is to try to, you know, determine if there is a plume and how that would look. And I'm finding out the gas monitoring and trying to get geospatial data is really difficult and time consuming. It's dangerous. There's a lot of things. And so I don't know, I'm still going to keep working on it, of course, but yeah, that's.
Sarah, when you say geospatial, do you mean altitude, longitude, latitude?
Yes.
Kind of stuff? Because the purple airs give you that. They also give you altitude.
Right, but we're mapping gas and not particulates.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So we did look at the Atmo tubes, but they're like a lot of the low cost VOC sensors. And if you want to get a reliable reading from those, you're going to have to go to a gas calibrated monitor and check it against, you know, that reading that's, you know, has freshly calibrated instrument, and check it against the low cost monitors, VOC output.
So is there a way to use a GPS device that you would have both on you at the same time and say, okay, this is my location stamp and this is my reading stamp?
Right.
I realize that's a pain in the ass, but.
Right, so we were using GPS kit, which is like super clunky, and we'd have to take a picture of the monitors. We've named all of our monitors, like our VOC monitors are all SpongeBob characters. Like, you know, we did it so we knew it, a familiar name makes it like, oh, we know that SpongeBob actually right now is acting up a little bit. So we took SpongeBob and we used Sandy and Mr. Krabs instead. You know, like we were able to figure it out easily. So there's like a lot of like trials. So what we're planning on doing, especially after discovering that we don't have VOC capabilities with the purple airs, that we're gonna have to go back to square one, and we're gonna have to wait for the ESRI One App, because that seems like it's going to be really promising for us, that we could just log in and then it tells you, hey, Sarah was here at this time, and then we just zipper up that information together, like at a later date. So that's what we're trying to do.
So the ESRI, Sean, the ESRI One app, or Sarah, is that something that's coming? Is that something that you use on your iPhone and that
yeah,
where
and
you
it's
are,
not
it
out
tracks
yet.
you?
Apparently it will be released in 2 weeks. So
Yeah, so what the One App is a consolidation of all of the mobile applications, all of the ESRI mobile applications into one package. It's going through final review right now and is going to be released as part of the upcoming user conference, and is going to be, the release is timed with that. So what that's going to allow is, well, a whole bunch of capabilities into a single mobile application. And you can kind of pick and choose. It becomes the buffet menu of what you're trying to do with it. If you need routing or navigation, it's in there. If you need field data collection, it's in there. So it's just kind of a bunch of applications that ESRI currently has folded into one thing. And
Yeah, and
Sarah,
having that app, I just as somebody who's in the field, when we go out, because we also see the County of Los Angeles and the landfill itself they've hired somebody, but when they go out, they take their monitor, they get out of their car, they spend maybe 1 minute, and they just kind of, hey, here's the air. And so for us, we usually stay in a location for like 10 minutes at least, and we have scheduled stops. So being able to take field notes and having like a product tell us, like automate that for us, then we will be able to have more time to take field notes and kind of assess if we wouldn't need to move to a different location.
and
So that's what we're waiting for.
and some of the nice things about it, you can capture in-field images as well that are tied to it. So if you see something that you want to capture while you're there, you can capture an image with associated notes, etc. So it's just one of the types of tools that's out there that can be used to do that.
And I think I'm really excited about this because it's not a third app, or it's not a thing, because all of the data that we're collecting that's stored on our monitors and we're trying to get out at the moment, that is going to be put into ArcGIS. So if you have it, it would be it's going to be a lot more streamlined, I think. So that way we'll be able to say, okay, well, we got this, we could even take a picture of the instrument that we were using, or the log form, because we take a clipboard out and we have to write like atmospheric pressure, weather conditions, if there was an odor, what did the odor smell like? So it basically, we have a lot of data that we have to put into one spreadsheet, and it's complicated.
Does that ESRI app allow you to create your own form? So like at a data point, you could have like a drop down of your own attributes. Like Sarah, you're mentioning the odors there. Could you say stinky or not stinky and then just click yes or no and then create those attributes?
You mean like a binary entry? Yeah.
Or even like a drop down of sorts instead of a binary per se. Like if you have 3 sites you go out and monitor every single day, could you take a GPS point and then put those attributes through the app? Sean
Yeah,
says, cool.
It allows you to create single select or multi-select from drop downs or attribute lists. So depending on how, you can make simple forms, or you can make very complex forms using the XSLX form language, like to get nerdy about it.
Yeah.
But you can make more complex with business logic and routing logic, that if you did get a stinky survey sample, it asks you additional questions based upon that. So yeah, you can standardize the data entry that goes in there so that you don't have the issue of kind of data inconsistencies just through typing issues.
Yeah. You're blowing my mind with this one. My master's thesis was using drone imagery of a cemetery here in New Orleans. Most of our cemeteries are above ground, but this one is a indigent cemetery. So it's people buried in the ground, and a lot of times not very well maintained. So if no one touches a grave within a year, they just put someone new in that same plot, which is why they needed like a more up-to-date and fast-paced means of monitoring, which they don't have right now. There's no system. So I had a Google form and an RTK system that I was having to do both of them and create my own unique IDs for each point and each grave, and then have to type it into the field in like 100 degrees New Orleans weather. So you would have saved me like months of time 3 years ago.
Sorry. Yeah, it allows for the kind of rapid creation and deploy of forms. One of the things, so we've used this same technology in working with in refugee camps, and as we were in Greece when we were identifying where folks were coming across and landing and capturing information upon the landing sites as well. And we were able to kind of capture that information in connected and disconnected environments. So if we were in a remote area, we were still capturing the data, but when we got reconnected, it would phone that data back up to the mothership and like live within the data repository or the data store that it was there. And we just had standardized inputs with tens to hundreds of field workers all working off the same thing, and then feeding back up for the kind of the main understanding of the whatever initiative we were working on at that point.
That's so cool. My only other question, since it's phone based, can you add photos as attributes? Dude, so cool. So cool.
That was my question.
Yeah. So you can capture, it's a one-to-many relationship. So if you were to capture one point, but are using it to, you know, if you're capturing photos, you can take multiple photos at that same location, and it gets tied to that sample record. Yeah. A field survey situation like you're referencing is something that was done with farmland preservation, right? So when something goes into a preserved state, there's certain criteria that's associated with it. You can't have certain drainage aspects, or you can't have the cows in the stream or things like that. You can go out and capture multiple photos on a single inspection for a property. So there's a lot of different use cases that applies to.
I have a question for you. If we were to, okay, so our gas instruments take a measurement. They're continuously monitoring, but they will record every 10 seconds. And in the world of ambient air monitoring, that's like too much of a space. Like you need to be able to 2 seconds or 1 second, because sometimes something will come by and go away from where you're standing, depending on weather conditions or wind speed, for example. And it seems to me that if we were able to have something in the ESRI One app to say, oh, I got a 54 here, ppm or ppb, and just in case it doesn't record, is that something we could also do with that app?
Theoretically, yes. I think there's a little bit of technical understanding that would need to know, because the sensor is what's capturing that data. Think of the app itself as just a logger at that point. So there's got to be some sort of synchronization or connection between the two. And it may shift. This is kind of an interesting thought. So shift from point-based collection of information and now go to a line or a transect. And every node along that line has got some info associated with it. So you're at a point, or you're walking or whatever, or a multi-point, now that I think about it. But you know, the point at that attribute is now 54, but now there's a breeze and now it's down to, I don't know, 36, making numbers up. But there's got to be a connection, a way to connect between the device and the data logger at that point.
Right. That's been our main issue, is that we have to collect them separately and then be able to, like, essentially like post-production, put them together. And that is time consuming. We're just trying to find the right method. And I'm kind of surprised that something hasn't, you know, we haven't been able to find anything. Like, we've looked at bad ELF GPS data logging, and it's just, it's not what
Yeah.
we're looking for.
So it's I don't think it's the data logger that's the limitation. I think it's more of the sensor. The sensor's got to have some sort of Bluetooth or in-field connectivity to the logger itself, right? The Mad Elf.
They don't make them
Elf
like that. I mean, honestly, they are very accurate, but they're clunky and they're not high tech.
Yeah.
And the way we communicate with them is either putting them on a calibration station to pull the data off of them, but that is a problem because the software is so old that some new laptops will not take the data off of it. So we just bought an infrared port last night and we're just going to have to communicate that way.
Yeah. Because, you know, in just from our conversations that we've had over the past month, you know, I've learned a bunch about air quality monitoring and the sensors and everything like that. It does seem there's a bit of a disconnect. You know, it seems like there's the purple airs that log to CSV files on the device itself, or they're connected to a local Wi-Fi. And then they log back to like the Purple Air site. Mary Jo, like you've been pulling up the map and kind of clicking and seeing the status of your info there on the map. You know, it seems like that's where things are. There's not a direct connect to a device that's there. So yeah, that definitely seems like a gap in technology. At the sensor level, though.
Hold on, when you said it connects to the device, I've got my iPhone, right? So I can pull up the app. What are you talking about when you say device?
I think he's talking about our gas monitors that we're using.
Yeah, well, you can't connect. You're using the Purple Air app that's there. So that's kind of a native app. That's
actually, you know what, now that I say that, they don't have an app. You have to use somebody else. You do have to go to the map. My apologies. Yeah.
Yeah.
AtmoTube has the app.
Yeah. So if they're, you know, thinking ideally, like if there's a sensor that can use some level of connection to a mobile device, like a phone or a higher quality or a survey grade GPS or something like that, and can sync up and says, oh, I got a point and I got a sample, and then push that over to that device so it can log it with accuracy, that'd be great, versus either sending it up to the Purple Air site or logging it to the CSV file that you have to post-process.
So I want to hear if there's any other thoughts, maybe from Sarah Greenberg or Chris on this question, or we can kind of keep chugging through troubleshooting some of the limitations around this. Sarah or Chris, do you guys have any work you wanted to uplift and share around mapping or challenges or successes you've seen?
I will chime in. I was in another meeting, so I sort of jumped in midstream and don't know exactly what I'm contributing to, but I don't even know who was impressing me with all this capability of what we can do here. But I need to catch up on the first hour that I missed. But I mean, from what I heard, you know, some of this stuff sounds really useful. I mean, the ability to snap photos with the sample and connect the two, both in terms of time and place, you know, these things sound like they could be really useful. So sorry I'm late, but you know,
no problem.
It seems like there's some good capabilities here that we need to start using, not just in Sarah's situation, but in, you know, other places that I can think of around the country. That's what I got.
Cool, thanks. Sarah Greenberg, anything you want to chime in on?
What Chris said, I'm pretty new at this, so I'm just here to learn.
Great. Yeah, Alana.
Oh, I was going to say, kind of going on what Sarah was saying with what you're facing over in California, a lot of my mapping experience came from being from a place where we are experiencing rapid change, but it's a very politicized environment. And so it's something that, like where I grew up, I am one of I think it was a class of 1,000, maybe like 50 of us went to college, and it's because all the rest of those kids could get a job right out of high school working offshore in the oil field, making $150,000. And in a poor neighborhood and like a poor state, it's really hard to argue with that. So a lot of my conversations with people around here talking about land loss and climate change, although we agree on like what we see, as soon as you start veering into any kind of accountability or blame, you lose these folks. So for me, maps have been a great tool to find those common grounds and kind of like give you something to steer the conversation back if it goes into, you know, political nature. Because a lot of people, even the most staunch Republicans around here, have radical environmentalist views because their hometowns, their property, their grandmother's livelihood is gone. You know, so it's a very good tool for me to find the places where I agree with folks that maybe have different backgrounds or different views on how the accountability process works.
Alana, have you had success? Have you done that already? And you've been able to have conversations and productive conversations with people?
Yeah, I'm doing my dissertation on a like crossing cultural and scientific data and trying to like my dissertation is going to be a web map where I have like land loss, inundation, things like that, and then overlay that with cultural data. So like a recipe. So instead of saying like, oh yeah, we lose a football of coastline a year, it'll be like for the next category 4 storm, my grandmother's house where she cooked me gumbo all my life is going to go away. That's the tool I'm trying to build with my own work to facilitate these conversations. But in my day-to-day life, I kind of take it as a challenge, you know, whenever I go and visit my parents who still live down the bayou, to like, if someone mentions it's hot, I'm like, climate change, like, let's have a combo. So it's, I have, but less so with maps. You know, I came to Public Lab being like, this is a cool tool for me to do this. But a lot of the conversations I'm having are hoping that map exists, that I can Google it really quickly and realizing that it doesn't. And so now trying to like take stock of where there are weak points and then create that data myself so I can fill in those voids.
That's super neat. And I think like, I'm not sure if it totally applies here, but a power map could kind of also uplift some of this work you're doing to like exemplify kind of a neutral, but also inherently political situation. And be able to like really ID kind of like why maybe supporting this one industry is counterintuitive perhaps to the, you know, lived experience that folks are having around losing land and cultural significance and such. Interesting. All right. Does anyone else have any other kind of challenges they want to talk about in terms of some of these mapping experiences that you guys have had? Or maybe any other gaps that you've come across?
For us,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for Wendy and me on the Lower East side, Lower East Side of Manhattan, is we're just starting to get data. So we're in the initial stages of gathering data, trying to figure out what to do with it, and then how to get it out to the public. And we have a lot to figure out. So we're sort of in the figuring out stage. And how, you know, I mean, I've started monitoring the air in my house, and it's shocking how, granted, it's hot here. I think the heat index is already 100. But, and I don't have air conditioning. I do, but I don't use it. So you know, and how do you tell people indoor air quality could be potentially bad without scaring the crap out of them? Because what do you do about that? Because my neighborhood, there's a lot of public housing. There's in my building, my co-ops, there's a lot of people on fixed income. So it's not like everybody has the ability to go out and buy a $500 air cleaner. So yeah, we're sort of at the beginning stages, and what do we do about it, kind of thing. And we have to, again, we have to aggregate the data and figure that out.
Your project is you're monitoring particulates for ambient air, which I feel that the ambient air is a baseline for what your indoor air quality can be. So if you have poor indoor air quality, one of the things they say is to open up the window. But
my windows are all open.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But
and I'm still getting horrible readings.
Exactly.
And
so what is your baseline?
I don't have icky stuff in my house. That's the thing that's so shocking. At least I didn't think I did. So that's the thing. It's very interesting. And you know, having Atmotube, right now I've put it back outside because I want to see if it's sinking. It's right near my purple air. So I want to see if they're somewhat, you know, the same. But when I bring it indoors now, when I first got it, it was, you know, the weather was still really cool and lovely, no humidity. And it was, you know, I was getting readings in the 90s, and now it's, you know, the high 60s if I can get there. So it's just, it's the beginning process of learning about all of this. And then also we have to do the research to figure out what this actually means. So, and then how to share it with the community. And the Atmotubes, we have enough that we can share with people, sort of lend out, and so they can test this thing out on their own too, you know, walking around or in their own apartments. It's been very interesting and a little scary too.
Have you and Wendy talked about kind of what the end goal of this project might be, like an education related ask perhaps?
I think it is that. I mean, it's really about getting the information to the public, but it's how do we, first of all, we have to interpret the data. We have to have enough of it. How do we interpret it? How do we do it on an ongoing basis? Because the purple airs will go up and stay up. And I've got one on my apartment balcony. I don't know if it's going to reside there forever, but it was the first one to go up, and it's the one with the most consistent data at this point. But the project, if it does happen, they say it's 5 years. It'll probably be a 10-year project because the city is they're so bad. The contractors are so bad. So it's, you know, it's an ongoing information sharing, data sharing. But no, we haven't figured that all out yet. We're sort of, yeah, we're in the beginning stages.
Definitely.
One of the things that I'm really interested in doing when we do get our purple airs, because we're also monitoring particulates during fire season, is to measure their functionality against a high quality particle counter that we have. And I think that would be useful to, you know, anybody, because I'm skeptical that I'm a little bit skeptical about a low cost particle counter being as accurate as they claim it is. And I would like to, you know, perform a couple tests, and that's just something I'm thinking about, and I wanted to connect with you guys, you and Wendy, to see if that would be interesting, of interest to you as well.
Yeah, and I thought about this last night after you said that you're going to put all your purple airs together, and I thought, excuse me, oh darn, we didn't do that. And then I thought, well, I have 2 more that we haven't given out yet, and I could technically, I think I have enough power to get out to my balcony. I could put the 2 others out there as a test to see that they're all reading the same, if we wanted to.
And you already have a purple air in your balcony in addition to the Atmo tube that you move back and forth, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those PM numbers vary also.
They do.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm skeptical. And I know that particulates it's different than gas monitoring, but in general, because of the nature of particulates, I think that they stick around a little bit longer than gas can. And I would hope that the readings would be, closely follow more so than a gas meter would.
I'm going to pull them up right now and
I'd love to see that.
An Atmo tube takes a bit to, connect. So let me do that while we're doing this. But yes, so and I know I know Atmo tube, has the VOCs connected to it. But so I don't go necessarily by the overall reading. I look at the detail, the PM numbers, and they differ.
And the VOCs rating, anything of like 1 ppm is like off the charts for ambient air. I mean, it's a lot.
That's what I've been getting in my house.
And you told me that, and I'm like, you might want to check that against a gas calibrated instrument. Because in the end, they're a company trying to make money.
So I've got hold on, I need to move my phone because it's too far away from the Atmo tube. Hold on. So when I pull up Purple Air, they've got the EPA 2.5 AQI, but they also have raw 1.0, and I haven't figured out how to read all that data yet.
Do you know about the EPA's air monitoring network, where they do the critical criteria pollutants, and the US EPA has, they have a number of these air monitoring sites, and the information is local, but VOCs are never part of that.
Is this on OpenAQ?
They might have scraped the data to add it to theirs, but I can pull yours up. Give me a couple of minutes.
Or send me a link, or send a link in the chat. Let me see what's happening with my, hold on. Okay, so
it's called AMTIC. It's oh, there you go.
Sorry, hold on, let me pull it.
Almost all these apps that say we monitor this, we monitor that, they're just pulling data from AMTIC. That's the Ambient Monitoring Technology Information Center. And it's not proprietary. You can go online and check, Here, let me drop some links here.
See, now this is the part where I don't know how to read the data. The PM on the Atmo tube, PM1 is 8, and the raw PM on Purple Air is 15. But I don't know what the difference is between raw and what Atmo tube is. And that's part of what we have to start figuring out.
Mary Jo, is there documentation for either of those monitors that say like any corrections they may do internally before they pump out data to you? 'Cause I know that there are also corrections that some people do after they even get the data from those monitors to either to correlate them with reference monitors, which are like the calibrated, you know, the like standard, the standard ones that are thought to be the highest quality. And also for different kinds of air pollution. I remember reading this vaguely last year, is that purple airs can respond a little bit differently to PM, say from smog, from maybe like car exhaust or something primarily, versus like wood smoke. So then you apply like a correction based on like the predominant kind of air pollution you're even dealing with.
I have not seen that, but I will, I'm going to go back and look and see what, and I think I need to have a conversation with both of them to find out how do I use the data in conjunction with one another or not,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I've also started looking, you know, while you guys were talking, Sarah, you and Sean were talking, when I went back to grad school, one of my professors works technically for NASA. So I'm going to contact him and find out if he's got any leads on mapping and how to, especially for Sarah, how do you map gases? How do you track them and see if he's got,
Well,
he's a wealth of
I'm
information.
very clear. I'm not unclear about how to map them. I'm just, I'm having trouble with the existing technology.
Right, but you
And
need to you need something to take the data points, right?
I'm hoping that with the release of this ArcGIS One, the One app,
The ESRI?
that it will solve a lot of our issues that we've been trying to figure out for years. Because
ESRI, sorry.
time is a precious commodity, especially when we're trying, what we do is we look at the atmospheric pressure, and when that is dropping, it's more likely that we're going to get odors, because there's a lot of subsurface gas that gets released every early morning. So in our early morning hour, it's good because it's not as hot as the rest of the day and our instruments won't overheat. But the issue is that we don't have a lot of time. And if we have an app that can streamline the location data, then it's and all the other extraneous but important, we'll call it complementary data, then we can just put that together in a spreadsheet, and it's not that big of a deal. It's just, we're having a little bit of headaches with it right now. I'm looking at the AMTIC data. It looks like there are 2 in Bronx and 1 all the way up in Rochester, but nothing in Manhattan.
And I started looking
Odd.
at, pardon me?
It's really odd.
Well, when I started looking at all this, there's so, even with the apps, they tell you where the monitors are. They're in Midtown Manhattan, which is, miles away from me. They're in the Bronx. And so it's very much not particular to my neighborhood, no pun intended with particular, but particulates. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to get our own monitors, is because we need to have the information here in the neighborhood.
Right, but I want to caution people who use that correlating data that comes on your Atmotube, for example. That is not local data. It does not have an instrumentation to record your temperature or humidity or anything like that. They're grabbing it probably from Wonderground, which is a network of community linked weather stations. I have one in my backyard.
Is that Weather Underground?
Uh-huh. If you go to Weather Underground, you can go and see wherever people have purchased these monitors and essentially adding to the atmospheric and weather climate data. It's open source, like Public Lab is too. So like I said, I would caution anyone trying to gather data in that sense, because it's not going to be accurate. It's not going to be local to what you're in, especially if you're dealing with microclimates. And you guys, you and Wendy are measuring stuff very specifically, very hyper local. So I know that weather patterns, especially with gas monitoring, weather, you know, it's like this chemical stew, and it's dynamic. And so that's why you want to gather that local data, because if you have that, it's a powerful tool to say, hey, when the weather, you know, does this or that, or when we see these patterns, XYZ can happen as well, or it tends to happen as well. So yeah.
Wait, I'm confused. You're saying that the purple air is going to be pulling the data from elsewhere, but you're saying hyperlocal is good. So it sounds like you're saying two different things.
I don't know what the capabilities are for that. So Weather Underground is great because you can get hyperlocal data. And one of the first things we did was we put in Wonderground or Weather Underground linked weather stations because we didn't have any hyperlocal data.
Well, ours are linked to Weather Underground also.
Okay, that's good then.
And that's the only one that it pops up to ask is Weather Underground. You know, do you want to share your data?
Right, but you can all, I think you can also specify which stations from Weather Underground. Meaning you don't want a station, you don't want it getting station data from something 2 miles away from you. It may not be relevant to
I'll
where
go back
you
and
are.
check that, but it wasn't, it was more, do you want to share your data with
I see.
Weather Underground, as opposed to, are you getting your information from somewhere else?
I didn't understand that. Okay, so Weather Underground must be, that's actually kind of cool. They're cross-pollinating their data with air quality data from Purple Air, and that's wonderful.
Right. And you know, I was online after our call yesterday, and IQ Air, that website, they also have Purple Air data coming into them, but I didn't see that as an option when I registered our devices. Because you know, it may be we just need to share with as many people as possible to get everybody's, you know, more data out in the world.
So we have about 10 minutes left. I know that Sean had a question. Oh, sorry, Chris, if I just interrupted you.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm having some technical difficulties, but Sarah sent me a question that was asked. I don't know who asked it, but a question was asked to us. And the question is, I don't know if it was the question you were about to say, but someone asked about the accuracy of the devices. And I think it depends on what you're attempting to achieve. So I'll give you an example. And I don't know what the statistical terms are, but like between accuracy and precision and repeatability. So if you had a device that was not very accurate, but it gave you, I don't know if they're precise, I don't know what the word is, but like, let's say it was off by, you know, it was off by 10 every time, whatever the units are, but that the number was relatively consistent, that could still be very useful, right? If it's telling you that, you know, at midnight, the PM levels spike, right? And you can figure out that that's when, you know, somebody opens the dumpster, or, you know, the refinery burns off all of its hazardous wastes or whatever it is, right? So there's not, I don't think there's one fixed answer. Like, inaccurate results can still be very informative as long as they're relative to each other. There's some accuracy there, right? Or there's some repeatability, right? So I don't think it's as easy as saying, well, we need instruments to be a certain precision or accuracy. We can get useful information from an instrument as long as it's not random, right? Now, if your question is, are the levels safe in my apartment? I'm reading 1 ppm, and I'm comparing that to what Sarah tells me is dangerous. I mean, that's a different question. But if you want to find out that, you know, my VOC levels spike you know, every afternoon at 3 o'clock, like that's when the gas station fills its gas tanks outside or something like that. You know, there's useful information you can get, even though your numbers themselves may not need to be precise or accurate, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to drop a link with the World Health Organization guidelines for indoor air quality. We usually go by that standard, the World Health Organization. So you can get more detailed information from that and kind of figure out what you think is a high level or a good level. There you go. Also, it's a little confusing. It was confusing for me at first to figure out what those levels were because they're measured in volume. And so you have to be a little bit like they measure them from what is it? Well, you can check that out, but they keep levels of what is a safe indoor and an outdoor for various toxins like volatile organic compounds, particulate matter, formaldehyde, ammonia. I don't know what else they have there, but you can check in that PDF.
Great. Well, we are almost at time. Does anybody have anything else they want to float to the group or ask questions about with this mapping theme in mind? Otherwise, this was a great discussion. I appreciate all of you sharing your expertise and insight. Jeanette, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, since we're just wrapping up this whole time together and this whole 3 months that we spent together, 2 or 3 months, just want to express appreciation again for you all joining the calls and bringing your projects and questions. It's been just like wonderful to watch everyone exchanging knowledge and see these projects like unfolding with all of the progress and also all of the challenges that are inherent, and just like mad kudos to all of you for doing that work. And I know that we were talking about continuing these sort of standing calls as well. So I'll drop the link again. It's a little Google form that sorry for the form within a form, but it links to a calendar where you can enter your availability for a couple weeks in July. And then from that, I can put together a proposal for another standing meeting, and then I'll connect with you. I'll post this on the Public Lab website as well as a comment, and then tag you in so that you can see, and then other folks who weren't on this call can also chime in with when they would like to join. But yeah, hopefully we can keep these calls going. It'd be great to, like, especially because you're all in the early stages of these projects, to help go forward, and then hopefully there'll be more stuff to share on Public Lab, and then other folks who are inevitably doing these kinds of projects as well can join in and also learn from what you're all learning and doing.
Jeanette, I just looked at the calendar. It says that we need a password.
Yeah, you don't have to. You can enter a password if you want to return to it, but you can also just type your name in so that I know who has chimed in yet. I never do a password myself.
Got it. So long as it works without a password.
Yeah, it does. Yep. Yeah, but that's it for me. So yeah, Julia, I'll hand it back to you to wrap up.
Yeah, well, thank you all. I learned a lot from hearing about these projects, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they progress with the political lens in mind, specifically, Alana. That's a really cool application of it. And yeah, I look forward to hearing about all this as it continues. So thank you all for joining. I know some of you probably will go on to the balloon build, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Public Lab. This has been great.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Thanks all. Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks.